Hello, everyone. I am here with my good friend Annie Lee. Annie is one of the best people I've met on LinkedIn and just in general. She is truly a fun and decent person. So before I get started, though, I do want to play you guys my cheesy intro because it is what I do.
Bring it.
Have you ever wondered why you struggle to find success or fulfillment or lasting happiness? It's probably because your default wiring is set to lose. The How to Win at Everything podcast looks at real people who have struggled with the same insecurities, fears, doubts, and expectations and found a way to succeed. Why? Their brains are rewired for success. We dive into their thought patterns to show you how to rewire your own brain to win at everything.
All right.
So, Kelly, I don't think that was cheesy at all, just so you're clear. I think that was really cool.
Oh, well, thank you. I watch the outro, though. It is really cheesy. There's a squirrel and everything.
It is not cheesy. I don't agree with you. I think it's great.
We'll see what you think in the end.
Okay.
So again, everyone, this is Annie Lee. She is the VP of Advisory at Something New. I know you guys really aren't here for me, so you probably already know Annie. So if you don't, though, Annie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So you have brought me on at a very interesting time. I have my hands dirty in a lot of things right now. That's what I like to say. So
Right.
I have my own business, my Annie Leib LLC business, where I have clients and I help them to live with Annietude, which means to be their best selves, to find their most authentic, true selves and be their best selves each day. So I help them find and uncover that part of themselves that they haven't been able to sometimes get them unstuck, which is oftentimes where they come to me, kind of stuck in life. So professionally and personally, I help them out with that. But I'm also the vice president of advisory at Something New, which is a talent strategy company. And we go into companies, a lot of startups, and we help them with talent acquisition, onboarding, and retention. Those are the three pillars. And we teach them, we have 60 modules. We teach them over a year's time. We advise them about their talent strategy, and we help them become a really legitimate company with a foundation based on people over everything. And it's super fun, and I'm having the best time sort of leading the charge with our Something New Labs, which is the three pillars I told you about.
Well, thank you. Now, before we jump into some of the backstory here, because I want to kind of get what led you up to this point. But before we do some of that, I really want to dive into some of the reasons why you're here. So, obviously, right now, I am working with entrepreneurs. I'm working with startups. I'm working with people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. And one of the things that I saw working in business coaching, working in career coaching, is that most people don't nearly have a plan. My granddad was a great cook, so he started a restaurant, had no idea how to run a business, didn't know who to hire, how to hire, any of that sort of thing. So what I found is that a lot of people who are entrepreneurs or who are leading to that life or wanting that life, they really are lacking some of the skills. And I thought, what better thing to show people who are starting up their business other than leadership? I mean, it's such a big piece, and none of us really think about being a leader, what kind of leader we're going to be, or trying to plan it out. And you, Annie, are one of the best people I've seen when it comes to kind of saying and being a certain way and living with that, being authentic. And I don't mean like all the marketing books tell us to be authentic. I mean like truly authentic, truly being yourself and truly kind of living in your own sort of path. So now that we get some of that out, I want to kind of go backwards and get an idea of what brought you to this point. Have you always been living with Annietude? Have you always been so open and so vulnerable?
So that's a great question. So I would say it all started many years ago, back in 2014. I had just blown up my marriage. I had two little kids. Things had gone really south for me. Things had just fallen apart. I crumbled. And I finally, hi, Jason. I finally was able to get to the right doctor who realized that I had been misdiagnosed for 20 years, actually 25 years, with MDD, which is a major depressive disorder, which is just depression and anxiety. But in fact, in 2014, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2. And that is rapid cycling. Hi, G. Rapid cycling. Sorry, I say hi. I'm used to being on your end, so I'm always saying hi.
You go right on ahead.
Best. I'm like, what's up? So I was mismedicated. I was misdiagnosed, and I was mistreated for a really long time. And it led to a lot of decisions and behaviors and things that I probably would do differently. However, I will say, hi, Chris. I will say that that it was a very, very arduous journey, but it led me to a path of exactly where I am right now. But really the most transformative time in my life after getting on the right track and getting diagnosed and medicated correctly, I got my life together. Our kids are great. We have a great co-parenting relationship. I went back to school at 40, right before I turned 40, to get my executive MBA. And
so we all know that that's not true, Annie, because you're only 25 now, right?
Well, right. 23. Right. I went back at 23.
Good,
right. Good. Thank you. Very good. Very good. Points for Kelly. Woo. I went back, and it was hell, really, is the best way to put it. In a 20-month executive MBA program is actually hell. Yeah. We had a cohort. So we're with the same people all the time. We worked our butts off together. And I learned, everything as an MBA that you would learn. But what I learned a lot was about entrepreneurship and teamwork and leadership. And what I found during that time was that I have a lot to offer, not any less than anybody else. And I bring a lot to the table, and I have my strengths, and I found what those strengths were. And I found out how I lead and how I want to build a business. And that's when I really started sort of building my business and building the blocks of becoming Annie and living with Annietude. So Gabriel, actually, who just popped up and said hi, he's the one that I said one day, you have a bad Annietude. And he was like, you need to make that a hashtag. And I said, no. And then I was like, okay, that sounds great. So I ended up doing that. And then Mike Paterano, who also was like, you need to start this whole Living with Annietude brand. And we started this, it was like the three of us. We kind of like started the one and only Annietude. Hi, Kenny. These are all my people coming to say hi. I'm so excited. And we started this brand, and I started this podcast, and these guys threw me to the wolves right away with these lives. I mean, everybody's like, oh, you do live? How'd you get used to doing that? They were like, we're going live in 5. Like, that's how they were. This was like thrown to the wolves. Annie, you're hosting, go. And I'm like, what? And then, so I don't really even, when people record sessions, I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, I know how to go live. That's all I know how to do. I do it like 5 minutes. Right. So, we started this Living with Annietude podcast, and it started to be really about becoming, again, the Annietude brand, which is becoming your best, most truest, authentic self and helping people. So I have like really cool people every week come on, and we just talk about being our truest selves. We talk life, we talk mindfulness, gratitude, mindset. And I've been on many podcasts where they interview me on like mindset management and what I do for gratitude and how I stay mindful and how I stay centered. And trust me, like I always say, Kelly, it's a work in progress for me. I wasn't born centered, I'm kind of like this. So it takes me a lot of centering and working on myself and meditation throughout the day and deep breathing to get right here and to be able to be right here and calm and centered. So, and one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't take the edge off, like I have a definite like edge and energy, and meditation and mindfulness and breathing does not take my edge away. It just gets me. So, that's sort of how it became the Living with Annietude brand. And that's what landed me in front of you.
Gotcha. Now, well, let me clarify. What landed you in front of me was, I think it was also Gabe, or it may have been Mike, but I remember I saw one of these guys on, I want to say on your show. No, as a matter of fact, you guys were on Gabe's show doing a roundtable. And I remember I was like, man, she's bringing it. Like, she's just a real person. And once I followed you and started reading the post, like, this is perfect. Like, she's one of those people that, there are plenty of people on LinkedIn who they're there for business. And I guess all of us are typically there for business, but there's a real humanity to some of the people where you understand, like, this person probably could sell me something, but they probably wouldn't if it wasn't good for me. And you get those real true personalities. And to me, it's like you stick out like that as a human being. And then to read some of your stuff where you're saying, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be for real. I'm going to tell people, hey, I got stuff. I got baggage, because who doesn't? And to me, that reads as such a real human thing. And I think the world lacks a little bit of that. We need to give that its own sort of place and make that more normal, because everyone is there. Everyone's in that same place. So that being said, how do you bring that to when you're working with something new? How do you bring that sort of real human being-ism to a corporate role?
So that's a great question, Kelly. Every single thing that I do, I bring my realness to it, because I don't know any other way. And what happened was, for many, many years, Jamal, what's up? For many years, I was really, really, I told you this when we had our pre-show, like, for a couple minutes, really tried to be pushed into this box. And I would, like, bend and turn and really try to fit into this box by corporate America. And I tried to stuff myself in. People tried to stuff me in. Travis, I love everybody saying hi. I'm so excited.
That's right.
So, it just didn't work. I didn't fit. And it became an issue to where I just couldn't do it anymore. And that's when I decided to go back to school, because I'm like, there's more for me. I have more to bring, and this isn't doing it for me anymore. But I decided, when I went back to school and then I started my own business, that every single time I was going to go to a client and talk to them, I was going to bring my real self. And I mean, the stuff we teach at Something New, the education that we provide for our clients, and we advise on talent acquisition, all talent strategy, it's all logical. It all makes sense. This is not like rocket science. This is like me being real and saying, look, you need to treat people like people. Here's how you do it and how you set up systems and processes to make it work. So, I bring myself.
Thing, right? That anyone has to be told or taught. Hey, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it all makes sense is my point. So, like, when I bring it, I'm not like, let me teach you the Pythagorean theorem. I'm like, let me show you, like, what makes sense here and how you can treat people like people. And we always say hashtag, people over everything. That's the reason we say that is because we truly put people first in every way, whether it's acquiring talent, onboarding, or retaining talent. You have to put your people first. So it just, I bring my realness because one thing I can tell you that I know, a strength of mine, is that I know people. I understand, I feel people. I'm an empath. I feel people's feelings. I want them to be treated with compassion and empathy. And that doesn't mean that they're not driven and motivated. But there's ways to motivate and drive people. There's ways to empathize with them. There's ways to, meet them where they are, instead of trying to put them where you want them to in that box, like they tried to put me in.
Okay, so now that brings up an interesting sort of idea, because if it's logical, right, it makes sense to treat people like people. It makes sense we all struggle at this or that. Why, at least in your opinion, so we're going to have you generalize here, why is it that this isn't more popular or more widespread among leadership? Why is it the other way around?
You know what? You're exactly right. I mean, someone said the other day, Annie, who's your competition? I said, I don't really have any. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, who's going in and teaching? Because here's why, because CEOs are worried about their bottom line. And they're worried about, the numbers, and they just don't sit down and talk talent strategy, which is going to affect the numbers at the end of the day. It's going to affect the corporate culture, and it's going to affect the bottom line so significantly, but no one ever stops. Everyone's thinking short term. They're not thinking long term. If you think about, there's a module that we teach about reputation management that has to do with when exit interviews, when people leave your company. For example, Gary Vee's company, when people leave his company, they talk highly of him and the company. That's called reputation management. That's when people say, oh my gosh, you know, I loved working there. It was incredible. They helped me find a new position, whatever the case may be. You know, there are ways to make people very happy and drive them and motivate them and get them excited to go to work every day. And it doesn't have to be where, you know, you interview people, you know, you interview candidates and you never talk to them again. You can keep them in the loop. You can keep them warm. You can keep them, you know, it's like I've interviewed with companies before and I never heard anything back. You know, the way that candidates are treated, it's like, that's the first touch of your company to a person. How do you not worry about that? You know, like these are really logical things that don't make sense to me and the people at Something New, but it happens everywhere. And so that's why a lot of times we work with startups and smaller companies, you know, up to like usually 500 to 800 people. And we try to build their foundation so that they don't have to go back and do damage control. Because if we build it from the very beginning, then, you know,
culture.
Exactly. And it's ingrained in there and woven into their culture, like you said, versus trying to go back and fix everything that wasn't working. Not that that can't be done. It can. It's just a little bit harder to do that way.
Is it vastly more costly? Because if executives are looking at bottom line, then they got to be thinking, well, we've already started down this path. Do we double down on this, or do we go forward and, you know, spend more money? So is it vastly more expensive to do it after the fact?
I mean, our program costs the same no matter where you are in the process.
Gotcha.
So we can offer the same education and advisory service over that year, no matter where you are in the process, because technically you should learn all three, even if one is weak and you're a little stronger, and you should really learn all three and they get woven together. But no, I mean, it's good if you have an open mind going into these pillars, which is what we call them, these buckets. And having an open mind to different systems and processes. Because what the problem is, Kelly, a lot of companies don't have the processes in place. They think they do, but they really haven't thought it through. They haven't gotten to, you know, down to the grind where they should. And they are just, it could just bring a much more positive culture and more money to the bottom line. That's all I can say is, you know, it just it ends up being such a good thing across the board if people are open to it. And really, I have yet to meet a CEO that's like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know. I don't think that sounds like a good idea. You know, everybody says, wow, like this is incredible. It's just a matter of when, you know, what makes sense, where.
Sure.
So that's sort of.
Are those the bottlenecks then to getting this as a widespread idea? Is it just finding the time, the place, the money, the budget for it, or what stops anybody from? I mean, if everybody gets that it's a good idea, what stops anybody from doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's their own. You're exactly right. It's their own bottlenecks. It's their own, you know, processes and procedures that are probably in the way. Or it's not the time where they don't think they have the money. And it's $40,000. That's how much my program, the program costs at Something New. It's not a secret. What it costs. And it's we don't hide that. And it is, I mean, there's a couple tools I can name for you right now that right off the bat, your program is paid for. Like it's paid for because the tool is that impactful. So, and we're talking 59 modules. So it's really incredible as far as the resource that it is. It's just a matter of, you know, and it's such a high touch business, Kelly, that like we can only take on so many clients. You know, there's only so much bandwidth we have. So we have to we're starting to have to pick and choose which ones make sense for us because, you know, as we scale, I mean, we only have so much bandwidth to be as high touch for a year. You know, that's kind of unheard of. There's not a lot of education and, you know, talent strategy companies that spend a year with their clients. So it's a while.
Okay, so I'm impressed. One of the things that I think ends up happening a lot, and this is just purely from the coaching perspective, is that people are pretty limited by what they perceive to be. So it doesn't even have to really be a bottleneck, but I think people's mindsets are limited to what they know and what they're used to, and change is scary and that sort of thing. So when we're talking about something like leadership, and for me, my core group here, as I'm talking to entrepreneurs, I'm talking to aspiring entrepreneurs, where should they start their path? Because most of them aren't going to start off with 40 grand to do any sort of program. What are the pillars that they need to start with to know to be good leaders?
Well, okay. So, I mean, I think if you're starting off, you're truly starting off, it's really just educating yourself and getting the people around you that you aspire to be like, getting as much as you can, watching other people, talking to them, having conversations, making connections, building your network, and finding out exactly what it is you want to do and who you want to be like and emulate them. So getting your network and growing your network, I think, is huge in the very beginning, and just putting yourself out there. I have found as an entrepreneur myself that putting myself out there and just being me has been the most rewarding and experience that I could ever, especially, I mean, LinkedIn is such an amazing platform. I have friends that are like family. I have best friendships that I've formed. I've met people like you. I've met incredible people that I will be friends with for life, whether I actually meet them face to face or not.
Right.
Face to face at one big LinkedIn party, but like, I want to host that. But like, I think growing your network and continuing to connect. And again, I've talked about this, having meaningful connections, starting there. It's not about, I want to sell you this, or I want to, I want to show you this. I want to give you this. No, just connect. I mean, like, for example, Travis and I have become friends on here, good friends, and we don't sell each other anything. We're just, we've connected. We have meaningful connection. We've talked. We did this 24-hour LinkedIn thing. Like we all collaborate and do things together. And it has grown my business exponentially. I mean, it's how SomethingNew, Scott McGregor, the CEO, found me. He was like, who are you? And like, what's happening? Like, what are you coming from? What are you doing?
I love that, because it's a really great segue into, I guess, what I want to know, and I imagine where a lot of the newer entrepreneurs are going to need to know, where does that come from? Because when you say something like networking, me, I am a naturally very introverted person. So if you may not know it by me hopping on to lives and showing people videos of me and my life, but I'm very introverted. So I'm really more hesitant. I'm really pretty choosy with who I speak with. Where do you start at? Where does that courage come from to jump out there and say, let me give you me?
Well, you can absolutely be an introvert and be on LinkedIn and connect with people, Kelly. I mean, I would start, it's even better sometimes for introverts, like that one-to-one connection, just reaching out to people, just one-on-one. So you're not in front of a crowd and saying, look, I'm just reaching out to some fellow whatever the person's doing. And I saw your background. It really interests me. Would you be interested in having a virtual coffee? I mean, there are very few people that say no to that. What's 15 minutes or 20 minutes of their time? You schedule using their calendar if they have a calendar link, or they schedule with you right on Messenger, and you just talk. You just say, hey, I'm Annie, I'm Kelly. It's nice to meet you. What do you have going on? My question's always like, what do you have going on? Like, what's up? What's up? What's new in your life? And I know I'm an extrovert, but for people that are more introverted, it's very, it's not hard. It's this whole thing with COVID and us being virtual, it actually it's an advantage for introverts, because you can have that one-on-one time, which is what you prefer. So, I mean, that's where the boldness comes in. You just have to ask.
And I love that you mentioned that, because this is definitely my experience. I was just speaking with, I want to say Lori Worker today, and she does data research, marketing research. And I just, I saw her, I believe, on either someone's show or just saw a post or something. And I'm always hitting those people up. Like, again, naturally introverted. I'm not trying to be in front of big crowds. I don't want to do that. But I'm like, hey, Lori, what you do sounds so interesting, and I'm such a data nerd that for me sounds awesome. Let's hook up for 20 minutes. Let's talk. Let's figure out what you do and if I can help you. And I think I'm probably going to have her on the show talking about market research, which obviously for new entrepreneurs is a really huge deal, trying to figure out your customer and what questions to ask. And I was like, hey, and in return, I'll definitely show you how to put together a live show, because that's something I've been doing. Yeah. And so I 100% agree. I think that process works so much to get that one-on-one. But now, what about as people are kind of getting into now, I know that for you, you're starting off with a lot of background in like talent acquisition and hiring, and you got a lot of specialization there. When people are starting their business and they're bringing on people, we got the idea about how they can emulate, how they can network. What do those guys need to know as they're coming into their hiring? What do they know? What do they need to know? What points can you give them to kind of build on?
When they're trying to get hired?
No, when they're trying to do hiring for the first time. Because there are a lot of people who don't know how to go about that, or what to look for, or how to, again, be leaders in that space when you actually have to manage someone.
Sure. So when you're looking to hire someone for your team,
right,
and what to look for. Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to know your strengths. That's number one. I think knowing your own strengths is so important. And I learned that, going back to school and just spending a lot of time doing self-reflection. And so knowing kind of what your weaknesses are too, and you definitely want to hire people around you. Team introvert here.
Right.
I love social. Yeah, it's so funny. People think I'm such an extrovert, but I actually like some homebody stuff. But I think that you have to know sort of what to hire around you to make up for and complement some of your weaknesses. And I think you have to look for that. But you have to look for personalities that jibe with yours. You have to look for, strengths, like I said, that complement yours, and know the kind of like DISC assessments, and like do those kind of personality profiles and things like that on yourself. Make sure you take those tests. The way that you lead and the way you like to be led and the way you manage. And it's really good to complement those sort of features about yourself. There's a lot I could get into about hiring and how to hire, but there's different skill sets for different positions. So you don't want to say like, you should, and we teach this as part of our program, but there's different ways to look at different positions. Like a salesperson, you're going to hire much differently than a CFO. Yeah. So you have to really know what the job description is that you're hiring for. And that's not just like that paper that somebody takes out of a file that's been in the file cabinet for 15 years, but really know what that person is doing, as in speaking to the last person that was in the job and finding out what they were doing, but really getting that job description down like as well as you possibly can. And then you can find, because you can list what you want on a job description, but you can't expect everybody to come in and be driven and motivated.
Yeah.
All of those soft skills that they call them, I don't know why people call them soft, but those soft skills are, you should have ways to test and ask questions about that and figure that out about people. And you're really looking at behaviors, and you're looking at how they interview and how they answer questions and things like that. So, I think that there are a lot of ways, to definitely talk to some talent managers, talk to us about how to hire. If you're interested in getting hired, you haven't hired people before. We have a whole other side of our business besides what I do. I do the SomethingNew labs side of things. So I teach the modules and advise. But there's career ideas where people can talk about getting the jobs, and there's like a couple different portions of our business that we can definitely talk wise with people. But yeah, hiring people there's a finesse with it. You have to get used to it and talk to people and find out what you're asking other people about yourself, asking other people what your strengths are. Your self-assessment might be a little bit different than other people's assessment of you. I think that's a big key point too.
So let me ask you this then. You're obviously someone who's been on your own journey with this sort of thing. Can you walk us through, I guess the first part is, how did you become self-aware? Like what steps are you taking? I know that you were properly diagnosed, but Is that the beginning, or how did that start for you?
As far as self-awareness goes, that's
Yes.
just a journey of maturity. So yeah, that was the beginning of like a mental health journey but like as far as I've had different jobs, I was always in pharma. I did some consulting, I did business development and marketing, and I traveled my way up. And then I decided, like I said, right at 39, I was going to go back and get my MBA. And that's really when I became, you live and learn through your life. You go through trials and tribulations, whether it's with friendships or professionally or with a husband or wife or, a broken marriage, or becoming a parent was a huge learning experience for me. I mean, for the first time in your life, you're not first.
Yeah.
And so it's like it slams you right in the face. Like these little pint-sized people depend on you, and you become really selfless quickly. And oftentimes your self-care goes out the window, and then you got to come back full circle and you have to remember your self-care. So it's a really delicate balance.
So, okay, so that kind of moves me right into the idea that it feels like it becomes more difficult, but it seems that as you've gone on, you had all these other things pulling at you, that you've gone more into self-awareness. So can you tell me what at what point or what thing made you pivot to trying to figure out you?
It had to be. So at one point, I was engaged at the time. We had 4 kids under 10. So I had 2 and he had 2. We were in one household, 4 kids under 10, and I was going back to school. We had a major change in finances because I wasn't working full time anymore. And so a lot of different things changed at once. And going back to school into a 20-month program is not the same as like getting it over 6 or 7 years. Like it's a really intensive 6 classes at one time, like every night of the week, every weekend. I mean, it was really crazy, and working. So, that sort of brings you to a place where you're like, who am I? I really like myself, or I don't. And there were a lot of things I didn't like. And there were a lot of things I found out about myself that I liked. A lot of my drive and my ambition. I can't believe I did it. And I made it happen through all of the trials and tribulations. So you find out things about yourself. That was really it for me. Like, and we're no longer engaged, but we're friends. But the bottom line of it is like, it was a transformative experience.
Okay.
So starting a business while going back to school in this 20-month program, learning who I was, turning 40. And, I know it's hard to believe, but turning 40. And then now I can say at 42 that it's like, it was so transformative for me that I'm like a completely different person in the best way. Like I really tried to bring out my strengths and focus on my good. And I feel, Kelly, every day is a work in progress. Every single day, I'm a work in progress. I mean, I'm not to a point where I'm so great, I'm good. Here I am, you want to be like, I'm like to a point where every day I can lay my head on the pillow at night and say I did my best today. That's what where I've gotten to.
Now you see, that's a place where I think so many of us are really struggling, right? Because we can accomplish something, but that still doesn't feed into the maybe I'm okay sort of place. So most of us are being driven by this sense of lack, or this sense of I'm not enough, or if I can just do this, I will be enough. Yes. So it really makes me curious about your journey. At what point do you say, I mean, obviously it's still a work in progress, but at what point do you say, I'm okay. I'm okay enough. This is okay. I'm doing enough. I can sleep comfortably at night knowing what I'm doing is enough.
Well, it's a really good question and a hard question, because there's a portion of me, and to be completely vulnerable with you, there's a portion of me that I don't know if I'll ever feel like it's 100% enough. And that's just my drive and ambition in me. Yeah. But most recently in the past 6 to 8 months, especially the past 6 months, when I really was alone for the first time since I was 14 years old, as far as not in a relationship, and really could be with myself comfortably and learn how to do that, that's when I became really enough in my mind. So when I was able to stop filling voids, whatever it was I was filling voids with, especially a man or a partner, a husband or whomever, then I was able to really sort of say, okay, now it's just me. And you know what? I'm okay. I'm all
Yeah.
right. I can do
Yeah.
this. So I think some time alone is definitely a good thing.
That is
Not easy,
interesting.
but it's a good thing.
Yes. Well, okay. So now that also makes me, and it looks like Mike was asking about this too. So when it comes to you getting to a point of, hey, I'm enough, I can do. I got the same question Mike has. What motivates you then? So to take on this role as a leader, because leaders need to be, this is the place I'm coming from. Leadership works from the top down. Motivation works from the top down. So if you're bad leadership, you'll have pretty much bad culture throughout your company. So as a leader, well, I'm trying to get a picture of someone who I would consider much more whole than probably a lot of people. So I know you still got stuff that fuels you and says, "Hey, I want to be," but tell me, what are those things? How do you? What pushes you? What tells you to keep getting better or to keep trying to get better?
Well, first of all, I was born, with this, like Mike said, this passion-driven purpose to impact others and help others. I know that I'm here. I have this feeling in my heart and soul that
Okay.
I'm here to help others and lift others. It's just part of why I'm here. I didn't always know how to do that, but I've harnessed this somehow into this business. Right? How do I do that is I model the way. So all you can do to lead others is to model the way. It's leadership by example. So I'll use my kids as an example. I can't expect them to act in a certain way or be a certain way or do certain things if I don't do them myself, right? So I need to tell the truth. I need to, when it's my responsibility, say it's my responsibility. And pick up the pieces and say, look, this is my contribution to this, right? I need to show up when I say I'm going to show up. I need to be reliable. I need to be dependable. I need to be loving. These are the things that are my core values. So I stand by my core values each day. My kids know my gratitude alarm goes off every night. We stop whatever we're doing and we talk about what we're grateful for. I write in my gratitude journal every morning and every evening. I mean, these are things that are part of it's like brushing my teeth, like it's part of my life. And they see that. And that's why my children are grateful people instead of being ungrateful kids, because they see the gratitude that I lead with. So it's the same at work. It's the same in leadership positions. You have to lead by example, do the next right thing, tell the truth, be dependable, be reliable, give positive feedback, but give honest feedback, and like you have to, that's the way that you model the way. And when people see that, they want to work for you. They want to go through, I think where did I read this earlier today? They want to go, I read it in a book. They want to go through the wall for you. When you show people empathy and compassion and you lead with your heart, people will do backflips for you. And it's real. So, I mean, one thing that people can't say to me is they don't question I don't think people question my authenticity. Like I show up, I'm going to tell it like it is, right? And that's what I bring. And at the end of the day, I have that to grasp onto, like I can say to myself, today, I told the truth. I showed up, I was dependable, I was reliable, I was dedicated, I did the next best thing. That's all I got.
You know what? Let me ask you this then, because as again, someone in a leadership role, what about when you do fall short? How do you give that to people? How do you express that to people? Because I think some of the fear that could come in is that you're gonna be looked at a certain way if you aren't doing it perfect.
It's so funny that you say that because it's the exact opposite. It's really when you can show your flaws and when you can be vulnerable and say, I screwed up, or it's taking responsibility and saying, here was my contribution. This is where I sort of messed up, or this is where I messed up. This is where I went wrong. And this is how I would do it differently next time, and get feedback from people and receive feedback as a gift. Right? People don't receive feedback as a gift that often. People don't like feedback. They get defensive.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you can receive it and say, that's a different lens. I didn't see it that way. Or, you know what? I did do that incorrectly, or I didn't do that the best I could, and take responsibility. People see that. People respect that, and they see that you're leading by example and you're modeling the way.
Now that is obviously true, and I think that's one of those things that you can't even dispute, because anyone who's been around that sort of person, we all want to follow that person. We all want to be around that person, but with the fact that we seem to lack a lot of that, it seems to be more prevalent that people are defensive and they're scared. And as in a leadership role, how do you walk that line? How do you know which time it's going to be the case that you're going to be that people are going to look at you and maybe lose respect or try to throw you under the bus because you didn't do this correct, versus when someone is going to say, oh man, I really respect that guy, he owned up to his crap? How do you know how to go in between? Or should you just always just come right out and say, hey, yep, I'm the guy, I screwed up here and there? Because I imagine it all comes down to fear, and no one wants to lose their position. Yeah.
It's fear-based. And, I think, again, back to honesty and truth is just coming forward and telling the truth is really important. But one thing I learned in leadership in school and in doing so in real life is that you're never going to make everybody happy. You just can't. You can't. If you're a leader that wants to make everybody happy, you're going to fail. So what you have to do is be okay not being perfect in everybody's eyes. You have to be okay being vulnerable and saying, well, that doesn't make you happy, but this is the decision I've made. And then when you do that and you boldly lead, you dare to lead in that way, and you put your money where your mouth is a great expression that I try to use sometimes. It's like walk the walk, not just walk the talk, when you do that consistently, people will respect you. So they don't have to agree with me, but I want them to respect me. There's a difference.
Yeah. So that kind of brings up this next thing then, with the fact that we're kind of seeing it play out. So as a leader, you gotta know yourself, and you have to become more self-aware, and you have to be empathetic and allow space to meet people where they are. And you have to get into a place where you're saying, everything isn't going to be fear-based. So we kind of got a foundation laid out, right? But it brings up this next question of, and I'm going to go back to Annie and her life. At what point do you make that discovery? What happens? Because at some point you're saying, I'm going to do it this other way. I'm going to try to fit into everyone else's mold, or whatever the case. So at what point, what happens to get you to a point where you have enough courage to say, I'm not going to it's not going to be working for everybody? How does that work? How does that look?
When I was at my last, when I was at a company, let's say, and I was unhappy at the company, and I just didn't align with their values in my personal opinion. And when I decided to go back to school is when I made that pivot to stop trying to put myself in a box that I wasn't fitting in. So I decided I'm going to go in and I'm going to be the most authentic Annie that I am right now. And I grew exponentially just by doing that. So it was almost 2 years of a program. And in that time, going through my life trials and tribulations of, like I said, the 4 kids under 10, and the starting my own business, and just all of the different things that were happening along those 2 years, I grew so much just walking in and saying, you know what, it's time. I can't do this anymore. I can't fake this. I can't be this person that everybody wants me to be. I've done it enough. I've done it my whole life. I can't do it anymore. So it was really that it was hard. It's not easy to make that pivot and say, I throw my hands up and say, this is it. This is all I got. Like I'm giving this all I got. And that's what I ended up doing with school and starting the business and everything at once. And it ended up playing out really well for me at the end. It was a hard couple of years.
Makes sense. So what I'm hoping is we can kind of use you as a model. I mean, again, not of perfection, because everyone wants to be like the person who seems perfect, but the model of someone who is just like everybody else. We all have stuff. We all have flaws. We all have pitfalls. We all fall down. So when I look at you, what I really appreciate is the fact that you are miles ahead of the game when it comes to being okay enough with yourself to say, yes, honestly, I fail, I fall, and to still say, and I know I still deserve to have good things and to be in this place of leadership and that sort of thing. So so we want to use you as a model for this. So when we're talking about people who are in a place now where they're becoming leaders because you own your business and you may only have 1099 employees, or it may be the case that, you know, you don't have a lot of employees, but the companies that are starting today, the entrepreneurs that are starting today are leaders. When we start talking about building that up as in a systematic sort of way, because there are going to be lots of people who have those same fears. As a system, how do you see people having to change, or what things do you think that the new entrepreneurs need to be doing to start being more, having more attitude?
Having more Annietude. I think look, I don't want to say that I don't have days with, and this is, you know, you see my videos, what I say, like that.
Yeah.
I don't have days with plenty of self-doubt. I have days
Yeah.
with fears. I have days that I'm a mess. It's far from being perfect. And what that, I lean into them. So that's what my suggestion is to them. It's lean into those fears. It's, what are you self-doubting? What are you so worried about? What are those things that are on your mind? That, what's the worst that could happen? Lean into them. You know, and that's what I try to do is, like, when you see me post a video, that's because something went on that day, or something is going on in my head that I want to share because I want a teaching moment for somebody else because I just learned a lesson. So it's not a, let me teach you. It's I just learned this and I need to share it with you because I want to learn this with you. So it's leaning into all of my self-doubt and fears. And that's what I share almost daily. You know, I mean, this morning I posted myself as a little girl in this picture where I saw all this pain in the little girl's eyes. And it brought me to tears this morning. And then I thought, but you know what? I'm looking in my eyes right now and I don't have that pain that I see. It's not flickering anymore. It's just bright now. And that was how far I've come. And I wanted to share that with people because I wanted people to see that you can get there. I've seen the darkness and I'm seeing the light. It is far from perfection. Part of what makes life amazing is that it's not perfect. What about perfect is what does perfect even mean?
Right. How do you recognize that? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the moments, you know, like you've heard me say this. It's the moments that I grab onto and put in my pocket for later in the day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah. that makes me ask though, Annie, when it comes to this idea of kind of that you're talking about, of you learned something, so now you're giving it. Do you feel like that's a big part of like you being a leader? The fact that not only are you taking in this lesson and you found this lesson out, but you're sharing it.
Well, I think sure. I mean, you know, I think that what is it good is it doing just sitting with me? So every moment that I have, I want to share. Every lesson that I learn, even if it's me tripping over my own feet, I want to share that with people, how not to do that, you know, and that's putting myself on the line and saying, look, I just tripped over my own feet. Don't do it like that. You know, here's a better way to try it. Or if you have ways, tell me, or if you need me, come to me, you know, like I just really try to put myself and my best self out there every day, but it's far from perfect. So yeah, I try to, for sure, you know, share the wisdom that I'm learning each day, because I want people to know that I myself, even in leadership, I myself am a work in progress. And when I share that with people, I have comments come back to me saying, like, you really helped me today. You motivated me to do this. You really reminded me this. And I'm like, that like makes my life complete when people say that.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'm here.
Okay. See, now that's the part I wanted to really kind of get in on. Is it, do you feel like that's a part of the cycle for you? Or is that like, would you accept, or would it be okay with you to have the lessons if you couldn't tell anyone else?
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't want to, because I want to share everything with people. I think connection and sharing and love and all of those things are what makes the world go round. I think that's what life is all about, the moments and connection and reflection and, you know, introspection and all of those profound things that make life worth living. So would I want to not share it? I mean, I would accept lessons, of course, but it wouldn't be the same life. Okay. I love sharing my my wisdom and knowledge. And I love gleaning wisdom and knowledge from others. I mean, I learn every single day from the people in my circles and who when I go on LinkedIn, and I learn from all you guys that post and that are vulnerable or funny or sweet or cute or smart, everything I learn each day. So, I mean, learning, I'm a sponge, and I think that's
awesome. So if I got this right, and I'm trying to keep count here, but so we have the fact that you have to have, for good leadership, you guys should be writing this down. For good leadership, you need to have. Well, you're teaching today, so
okay.
For good leadership, you have to have self-awareness. You have to have a willingness and a desire to know yourself, and you need to know good and bad. And you need to be able to accept that the things that maybe aren't the best things, and understand that you're not alone. And it sounds like the last thing you said, Annie, is that it's really constructive to share that knowledge, to share that in an empathetic way that, hey, you're not perfect. You will fall short. So did we get all of it? I think
you did. I think that's living with Annietude right there.
There we go. Trademarked.
That's right. And do all of those things with authenticity. So come from your heart and do all of those things. So to wrap that up with a bow, do all of that with authenticity, and you have leadership made.
Okay, so now you bring up the part that I feel like is to me, it's the root. It's the root of everything, because there are some people who will try to emulate an act, and it's not the same thing if it's not from your heart. It kind of makes the point that you have to have a good why before what you can do really makes the same difference. So I can do 100% everything you do, but if I'm doing it because I see that this is going to make extra money for me, but I don't care about helping people or sharing this, then it still won't be the exact same. So what's your why, Annie? What's the root of everything for you? Where's it all come from?
My why truly is that, well, there's a couple of different whys. First of all, my why is that I'm here to impact and lift others and help them to be their best selves. But my why are two little pint-sized humans that run around my house, Sammy and Evie. Evie is my heart and Sammy is my soul. And they are my whys and why I wake up in the morning and why I do what I do every day. But really the connections and the people that I have in my life and what they've given me as the ability to lift them. And it is actually quite self-healing for me. Yeah. So my why is to do that every single day, to lift others, and I'm lifted too. And that's why I'm here.
I think that's beautiful. One of the things that I also think that you mentioned a couple of times now that really feels huge, honestly, when you're giving this information back to other people, and the fact that you give it to your children, there's almost a cyclical effect of it returning back to you. So it's almost kind of like you can be selfish by being as given as you can. It's like being as given as you can, right? And it's such a beautiful thing, because every relationship every good relationship I have, it works just like that. When I'm trying to give the most I can, it feels like there is the best results, and the stuff that I want really comes out of that, versus me trying to push and manipulate and prod people to do things. Do you find it to be pretty similar?
I totally agree with you. And the more that and I am a giver by heart and by nature. So the more that I give, and that's the other thing with like networking and everything, to wrap up what we're talking about. I mean, networking and professional connecting and connecting a meaningful connection in life, everything is about giving. Right. And the other part that I totally agree with that. The more you give, the more you get back, for sure. The other part I wanted to touch on when you asked me about my why, I have to tell you that I'm finally in this place where I can say me, that I am a big reason. And I am a big.
I love that, because you're worth it, right?
Because I'm worth it. And I didn't feel like that for a really, really, really long time. And I didn't understand why it was important to feel like that. But I finally understand that you have to be yourself first. You have to do you and your self-care, and you have to have your own space and person first, so that you can be whole before you can be with anybody else.
I love that. I love that. Mike kind of says something similar. We need to know who we are before a real why can be created. And I think that's so true. It's almost like until we really get ourselves, or until we really start to understand ourselves, we're basically we're working off of other people's expectations or other
Yep.
people's ideals about what life is and what's valuable and what's not. So I think that is so true, Mike. Thanks so much.
Yes. I'm so surprised that Mike and I are aligned. That's sarcasm for you.
Not about that one though, because I feel like that's a very Mike thing to say.
Very, very Mike thing to say. Yeah, I mean, it's true. You have to really, really, and it takes time and maturity in your life
Yeah.
to really get to know yourself and who you are before you can figure out your why. He's dead on.
Yeah, and I think it's probably not too far of a stretch to say that when you're talking about leadership, that kind of circles back around to this idea of becoming self-aware. Like, so not just about your learning style or your leadership style, but about your own personality, who you are as a person. What are your core beliefs? What do you believe in, and why? I interviewed Laura. Gosh, she's gonna kill me for getting her name wrong again. Laura Gassner Otting, and I love Laura because she's so stern and like straight to the point. And she made this point about a janitor who's working at NASA. President Kennedy comes to NASA, and he asked, "Hey, what do you do here?" And he's like, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." And the janitor, his why is there. His why is there because it doesn't matter that he's sweeping and mopping. He's playing a part and putting someone on the moon. And to me, it's like that holds so much
all the pieces,
weight.
all the parts. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have to ever feel sad about anything I'm doing because what I'm doing, it may be a minuscule part, it may be microbial, but it is a part of making the world a better place.
Yeah,
And I feel like my connection with that, yeah. So and yeah, it's about that impact. So we're coming up on just a few minutes left. The times when you're talking to someone who is when you're talking to someone who really is exuberant and brings out these great I love the energy that you bring to these things. It makes it go so fast though.
It does go fast. I know it might show sorry, my show's a half an hour and it flies. I mean, an hour went really fast. An hour is hard. I have to hand it to you. An hour of a podcast is hard to do. You do this like all the time. It's really hard to do a whole hour. So
really, you feel?
I mean, with everybody to do an hour, like
Yeah. Well, the good part is I'm pretty interesting. So I mean,
right. Well, I mean, you bring it. You bring it. Let's be honest. You with your big smile, bring it.
Yeah.
I told just for the viewers and listeners to know. I told Kelly last time when we spoke, when we had our phone call, I said I used to be the one with the white teeth, and he came along.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the whitest teeth I've ever seen in my life.
You know what? She said that it's the contrast in the skin.
Yeah,
I'm telling you what it is. It's look, check this out. Check this out. No, boy. Nah, I think that does.
They're like glowing. Glowing. You used to have white teeth, not fair.
Well, look, I'm working on it.
Right.
Let me make sure I get everyone the word of where to reach out to you. Can you give me your website? Give me your contact.
So my website, my personal website is annieleib.com. So ANNIELEIB as in boy.com, or my company website is trysomethingNewnow.com.
All right. And you can also find Annie on LinkedIn. You're on Facebook, right, Annie?
I am. Yep. Professionally, I hang out a lot on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think all of us do. Like Facebook feels more social, and LinkedIn feels like more social for grown-ups, I guess.
I know. Professionals.
Right. Annie, I want to thank you so much for your time this evening. You are a great guest and just an awesome person. I really enjoy you.
Thank you so much.
So you hang on for 1 second. I'm going to play us out with our outro.
I want to see this girl.
Don't tell everybody. Is it okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good evening.
Bye.
Ta-da!